Mother... God! What can I do? What can I... There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. Fuck this boss. This boss is fucking shit!
Is Elden Ring too hard?
Yes!
FromSoftware games are famous for their insane difficulty. Ever since Demon Souls, they've been doing this bullshit, but Dark Souls 1 is when that reputation truly started. With all the memes and them naming an entire edition off the fact that you're gonna die a lot. By the way, that version of Dark Souls 1 is worth over $300 for some reason. All these games are difficult in their own way. Even Dark Souls 3, which I consider the easiest, has its difficult moments. And for the longest time, an easy mode has been a controversial topic among the community. You've got three sides to this argument. The journalists that beg for an easy mode because they don't have the time or the patience to beat some of the harder bosses. The gatekeepers who treat an easy mode like the fucking plague and will shit on you for playing the game in a way that they deem too easy, like using shields or spells or summons or weapons that are too strong or being over leveled and a fuck ton of other things that I missed. And the third group, the one that doesn't care. That's me. Sekiro is when these arguments really kicked in. Journalists just did not have an easy time with this game, especially Mr. Jason Barham, who took over 300 hours to beat the game. And to that journalist, I only have one thing to say. I mean, I could definitely understand struggling on Sekiro. It's a tough game, especially if you're an idiot like me who doesn't realize that you can level up your attack power and goes all the way to Fountainhead Palace with 2 attack power, ruining the game for themselves. It's FromSoftware's most different game, which led to a lot of people struggling on it since it was difficult to adapt to. I, for one, experienced this for the first few hours, where instead of attempting to deflect attacks, I would try to dodge them with my 0 iframes and run in circles waiting for an opening. But even if you play the game properly and you level properly, it's still brutal as hell. Probably one of From's most punishing games. Mistiming a single deflect is the difference between winning and losing a boss fight. And the boss fights themselves are hard as fuck, with Guardian Ape, Genichiro, Father, and Ishin all being insanely difficult, especially if you don't know what you're doing. I can definitely understand why journalists would struggle with this game, and why they'd ask for an easy mode. And FromSoftware's response to those requests was releasing a hard mode. Wonderful work, everybody. I'll be honest, I don't see a difficulty setting getting added to these games. FromSoftware seems to have put their foot down and refused, which I understand, but I also understand the frustration that some people are having with getting murdered over and over again. And I have a solution. Don't play this one, or any of these. Play this one. For my money, if you haven't played any of these games, the best place to start would be Dark Souls 3. To me, it's by far the most easy, simple, and streamlined. There isn't any of those dumb moments where you get lost wandering around aimlessly for 2 hours until you give up and just Google it. You know, like that part in Dark Souls 2 where you have to talk to a fake dragon and then somehow know that you're supposed to teleport all the way back to the beginning of the game so that you could walk into the memory of a dead tree that's hidden in a corner that you've probably never seen and then go back in time to fight a boss that you've already fought before. There isn't any of those moments. The most confusing part of 3 would have to be getting to Archdragon Peak, because they somehow expect you to know that doing a meditating emote will move a mountain closer to you. But other than that, it's self-explanatory. Teleport here, beat the boss, go to the next area, beat the boss, go to the next area, beat the boss until you're done. And it also helps that the main story is very easy. The only hard boss is probably the Abyss Watchers and Pontiff. Everyone else you could be in like 20 minutes at most with patience and timing. If you want to ease yourself into the franchise, play this game first, then move on to Elden Ring. Or just play Elden Ring first, I don't care. I'll give you some tips for that too. Now, Elden Ring is an interesting case. Its difficulty is completely different from all the other games because of the way that you go about completing the story. Because Elden Ring is an open world, you don't have to follow a linear path like all the other games. You can do whatever you want. You can go out and complete every dungeon on the map and then fight Margit, or you can do no side stuff at all and just fight main story bosses the whole time. This game is as easy or as hard as you want it to be, which is honestly a pretty smart way of solving the easy mode debate. If you do what I did, which is a mix of side stuff and main stuff, then this game will be hard but fair. I was properly leveled for most fights, and they were very challenging but fair, which is how I enjoy these games. Some fights are just bullshit. Going in properly leveled without any summons and mastering the fight is, in my opinion, the most fun way to go about this game. But the problem is, it can also be very difficult, and if you saw my last video, I definitely struggled on this game and do consider it the hardest in the franchise. So an easy way to counter the difficulty is to just fight the bosses buff as shit. Becoming overleveled in this game is easy as hell. In all the other games, you'd have to grind for like 6 hours, but in this game, all you have to do is side stuff and you'll quickly level up. There are so many dungeons everywhere for you to run around and do, and even at level 1, they're easy as hell. I don't think I ran into a single dungeon boss that gave me a really hard time, except for this bullshit invisible one, and these two dickheads that were somehow destroying me despite the fact that they're just two normal enemies with more health. But aside from those ones, for the most part, these dungeons can be done pretty easily and fast, which will give you a bunch of XP to level up with. Then after that, you can go ahead and destroy the main bosses. I can confirm this works since I did this. When I fought Margit for the first time, I was around level 5 getting my ass handed to. Then I went ahead and did some other things for 3 hours, came back, and then first tried them. Like I said before, Elden Ring is as hard as you make it. If you rush through everything, it'll be one of the hardest games you've ever played. If you take your time, it's much more tolerable. But what if you don't want to spend time to level up, and you hate challenges? Well, don't worry, because I have a solution for you. It's this class. This is the most unbalanced game FromSoftware has made ever since Dark Souls 1. In my review on this game, I hadn't really noticed how broken some of these classes were. But now after about 20 more hours of playtime, Jesus Christ, this game is extremely unbalanced. Literally, search up Elden Ring OP builds, and there you go, you beat the game. This spell, which can single-handedly end an entire boss fight in moments. Flame builds that evaporate anything that moves. Becoming the literal Grim Reaper and sending everyone to hell. Stun-locking dual katanas that inflict bleed. And potentially the most broken build in the entire franchise. Yes, more so than Giant Dad. This Erdtree shield build. This shield can send any status effect that's inflicting you onto your enemy. So what that means is use this spell to set yourself on fire, and then spam L2 constantly to shoot these projectiles that do a fuck ton of fire damage to your enemies. And if you think that's all, don't worry, there's more, because this build is also broken for PvP. You get this Shotel, use its weapon art, which will give it Death Blight, and then literally follow your enemy around until their Death Blight gauge fills up and they get one-shotted. So, I'd like to retract what I said in my review for this game. It's not the hardest anymore. This is 100% gonna get patched soon, but if you just want to quickly beat this game, go ahead, get this set. But even without their set, there's still so much things that you could do to make this game a lot easier. You don't even need broken builds when this game gives you access to summoning. Now, summoning has been in the franchise forever. Some bosses it made way easier, others it was pretty well balanced for. But for the most part, it usually wouldn't make your game that much easier, especially since you were limited to how much you could summon. But in this game, not only is it easier than ever to summon other players, you can also summon these Spirit Ashes, which help a ton during boss fights. I didn't use this feature that much aside from this invisible guy, but from what I've seen, the jellyfishes and wolves are probably the best ones, with the wolves doing a great job at distracting the bosses so you can get some cheap hits in, and jellyfishes being able to not only distract them, but poison them. But the best by far would have to be the Mimic Tear, which allows you to make an AI-controlled clone of yourself, meaning that they have all your armor, weapons, spells, everything. Here is the hardest boss in the game, potentially in the franchise, Malenia, who took me 6 torturous hours to beat. Oh my god! Here's what happens when you summon a Mimic against her. So yeah, after all that, I think it's pretty clear that Elden Ring really isn't that hard of a game. It is very hard if you play like my dumbass with just a normal dex build, not using any summons. But if you want to have some fun and don't want to break a controller in anger, then there you go. You've got plenty of options. Over-leveling, summoning, OP builds, or the nuclear option, that fucking Death Blight shield build.
Block it. Block. What the fuck happened to my triggers?